or in the representations. It just means that I think I have enough information to address those matters already, so I won't be asking for more. So the hearing session is a structured discussion that I will lead based on an agenda that I'll circulate in advance. And that's based on the information that I have and the questions that I want to ask. So I'll ask the questions at the hearing. I'll give you advance notice of the questions that I want to ask. I'll circulate it in advance of the hearing. And the hearings are usually considered the most appropriate procedure in situations like this. So it's a very flexible format. There's no formal presentation of cases. There's no cross-examination. But if there's a large number of parties, the hearing can become a bit unwieldy. So I'll address that in a moment. So at this stage, I'd just like to ask the parties for their thoughts on the procedure and the scope. And I'll just run through the main parties first and then open the floor to other questions, okay? So for the appellant, can I ask if you're content with what I've set out now?
Ma'am, Douglas Armstrong speaking. Yes, we're content with that. Perhaps if I could just clarify in relation to your note point addressing the proposed restoration strategy and levels, and you're suggesting further information on that topic. Were you considering, ma'am, that should be a hearing session, or it was going to be further written information, or perhaps alternatively, that could be dealt with in the session on conditions, because there's obviously a number of conditions that are relevant to that point?
Mm-hmm. What I'm really thinking of is that the representations, and I believe the council also raised questions about whether or not the strategy was adequate to return the land to its former agricultural use. And the landscape and visual assessment is predicated on that happening. So, given the questions that have been asked, it's a matter of clarifying the material, the type and amount of material, and how it will be laid down. I think there were a lot of questions about whether or not there would be enough material to achieve what was envisaged. So that was why I was thinking it would be better to just clarify those points through a very short hearing session, and if necessary, take those forward into the conditions. Does that answer your question, Mr. Armstrong?
Yes, ma'am. I'm obliged.
Okay. I'll just take a note, if I may. Mr. Armstrong, any other points to make on the procedure and scope?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nelson, for the council.
Thank you, ma'am. We are also content with those as hearing topics, ma'am. The only additional topic that we'd wondered whether it was needed to be covered in the hearing was the reason 2 for refusal regarding the development plan and appropriate use in the countryside, and whether that was a important issue that needed further exploration. But it may be from your statements earlier you're already content, you've got enough information before you on that, ma'am, but we just wanted to raise that with you.
Which points exactly would you want to discuss under that topic?
I think it's clearly the appellant and the council have very different positions in terms of whether it complies with that development plan policy, environmental 18 of the LDP. And it seems a fairly central point to the appeal is whether the quarry in this location is supported by the development plan, or whether it doesn't draw any support from the development plan policies about development in the countryside. So it seemed a fairly central issue to look at further through a hearing potentially, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what you've said, because in terms of NV18, we will be looking at the issues of amenity for both residential properties and, of course, for for the lost shore. And we'll be looking at the issues of landscape and visual in terms of the restoration. I do not see a need to go into it any further. If you'd like to go into more detail to persuade me otherwise, now's your chance.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that was. I don't necessarily need to go into more detail on it. If that's your view, ma'am, and you're satisfied you've got enough information before you on reason two. So that's just. I think the existing hearings, as you've suggested, will cover reasons 1 and 3 of what the council's refusal have. We may touch upon aspects of reason 2, but it just seemed that was a fairly central reason for the refusal. But if you've got enough information in writing for you for that, ma'am, that's fine. But we were just wondered whether that was a matter that would benefit from further detailed examination through a hearing.
Okay. I'll consider that, and in my note of the meeting, I'll make a decision and let you know. Is that okay with everyone?
Thank you, ma'am. That's absolutely fine.
Excuse me. Dr. Kavasnis?
Yes, thank
On
you.
behalf of the council, community council, I should say.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Chisholm. I see the points you're making. I was wondering, seeing as this is my first time with this kind of hearing, if it would be beneficial for accessibility for the community this is regarding, to have a short introduction to the plot for those that are interested and have not enough information, like 5 minutes from the appellant and from the council, just to see what are we actually discussing here, or from you, if that makes more sense, just because it brings everybody to the same page. I don't know about if that is something that is a procedural thing that could work. We are happy with a lot of these points. We are really concerned with how things will be regulated, because from what we heard previously from the council was that they had no efficient measures when items were not followed up. And so having really clear mechanisms for what happens if something's not done according to the planning permission would be really nice for us to hear about. And of course, benefits to the surrounding community. And we also strongly support the point from Edinburgh Council that this is green belt countryside type areas that have a particular landscape amenity that we would like to, that this whole change in 18. I'm taking your word for that. All the points that I've previously made, I think I have like 17 of them from all the different regulations we think have been influenced by this application. I'm assuming those are taken into account, those that you haven't mentioned here. Was that
Okay.
clear enough?
I think so. Just to be entirely clear, so if you're asking that the appellant does an introduction, or that someone does an introduction of the proposal as it stands,
Yeah.
I think for folk who are not particularly aware of all the history of this proposal and the quarry itself, this can be a bit confusing, what's been consented in the past and what hasn't. I think perhaps the thing to do would be for me to provide the introduction as I understand it, and then to invite the appellant and the council to provide any points of clarification to make sure, as you said, that we're all on the same page. Would that satisfy your request?
That would very much satisfy my request. We are expecting a very high level of interest from the local community, and we are. It would be unfortunate if people showed up to the meeting and everything was so technical that nobody had any idea what was going on, because this is frankly a historic event for the village.
Okay. Well, I'll go with the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
If that is suitable, Mr. Armstrong, are you content with that approach?
Mom, yes. I mean, were you planning to do this in a sort of written format in your notes in a week's time, or was this something you were planning to do for the agenda in advance of the actual hearings?
I think I would do it for the agenda.
And would there then be an opportunity to respond to that within the 7 or so days before the hearing?
Yes. Yes, with okay. Well, it'll either be with the agenda or the detailed questions. I have some material already prepared, so yes, you'll have an opportunity to respond to that. But it may also be that you'll need to clarify on the day, and Mr. Wilkins will be there as well, I'm assuming, and he has a good understanding of the project.
That's correct, Ma'am. Perhaps just on one point in relation to what Mr. Nelson said when he was asking about perhaps having some time on the development plan. We obviously have the report to committee, which goes into some considerable detail in relation to the development plan. We've got the various statements from the parties, and indeed we've got the council's statement in relation to the development plan policies. I just wondered, is Mr. Nelson proposing to raise a new matter that's not already set out in that? And if so, could we have some advance warning about that? Or is it just to go over the points that are already set out in the detailed council response that they've already set out in relation to that policy?
Mr. Nelson, could you respond to that, please?
Certainly, ma'am. It's no more than going into more detail in terms of that reason for refusal too, that we will have already set out our written submissions on that in our appeal response. So as I said, ma'am, it may be that you consider you have enough before you. It was just a council submission. That was obviously a clear reason. One of the reasons for refusal, and was an important aspect of the council's refusal on this that we thought may benefit from further examination of the points being made through a hearing, to allow other questions on that, and the council, both from the council and the appellant's perspectives of what they've stated on that topic, ma'am. It's certainly not a new matter.
Okay, well, I've already said that I will review that and come back to you. So, Mr. Armstrong, has Mr. Nelson answered your question?
He has. I take it he's. I've taken from his response that there's no new matters raised, and it's what's already set out in the papers. I'm obliged to Mr. Nelson confirming that.
Okay, thank you. Again, as I said, I will review that information again, but if there's nothing new particularly or more detail to add to what's already before me, then I'm content to use the information that is before me. At the hearing, first of all, we will have enough to discuss. And second, it's about clarifying the information that's before me. Okay? Right. Just go back to the points Dr. Kavasnas raised, if you can bear with me for a moment.
That's fine.
Right. The issue of enforcement
Yes.
and how things are enforced
Mm-hmm.
is not really a matter for the planning permission. And I think that was a point that was made at the hearing that was held, excuse me, by the Planning Applications Committee. Do you think people would benefit from a very brief discussion as to how enforcement is carried forward by the council to increase the understanding of the community?
Yes, ma'am. I think what we heard from the planning officers, and apologies if my adrenaline makes me from that meeting makes me not remember appropriately, but it sounded like the only accountability was to write a stern letter, and if nothing happened, they would write another stern letter. It seemed very like the planning department in the council had no tools available to them when the planning applications and the conditions were not followed. And we were very disappointed with that. And I understand from other planning permissions that they are, for instance, or the order of things can be put into part of the conditions. So this has to be in place before this happens, kind of things. And that's very easily measurable. It's very nice performance indicators that this has been met. So now we can go to that state. Things like of that order. And of course, I think the people needs to know what are the actual tools available with the planning office, seeing as there is real work to be done in terms of trust development and community relations with this quarry.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Skinner, you have a point to make?
Thank you, Mark. It was just a general observation that there is a live enforcement case currently open against the site. So it was just, we have raised that in the procedure notice response. If that matter was to come up during the hearing, I think the council would like to reaffirm that the live enforcement case remains open. So there might be sensitivities around detailed discussion out with, say, like an overview of the role of enforcement matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, I'm aware that there's a live enforcement case. It remains open. One thing that could be done, Dr. Kavasnas, is to, particularly if you're thinking about performance indicators being included in the conditions, for example, when we have the session on conditions, I think that would be the appropriate time to bring up that matter. Okay, because the session on conditions would be looking to see if there's any disagreement between the appellant and the council on the conditions that are already before me. But it's also an opportunity as a result of the discussions that we have before that to see if we want to alter the wording of some of those conditions to take account of the discussion that we've had, or if perhaps there are new conditions that need to be added or more detailed conditions. So a brief introduction, again, perhaps from myself, because that means that we're all on the same page, with clarification from the council at the beginning so that everybody understands the limits, because it's not for the planning permission to dictate how the council enforces conditions. That's a separate matter. But if it's in the interest of the community to understand how that enforcement works, so they know the limits of conditions, then if that would be helpful, we could consider that.
Yeah, that sounds like a good. Thank you for that feedback. That we can put our thinking hats on and suggest mutually beneficial or always beneficial conditions that increases accountability, trust development, the community relations, because that is one of the big issues the community is having at the moment.
Yes. So that's come through clearly in the representation. So when I send out the note of the meeting, right, I will also refer you to the appropriate circular that's produced by Scottish Government that sets out the rules for the conditions, because there are 6 criteria that a condition has to meet. They have to be reasonable, for example, and they have to be enforceable and so on. So I'll provide you with the reference to that document so that if and when the community council or others want to make those sorts of points, they can check them against those rules in advance of the discussion. Okay?
Yeah,
Right.
that makes a lot of sense. Can I just ask a quick question pertaining to the residential amenity pertaining to dust? Because
Excuse me.
no, that's fine. So I saw the representation from SEPA that says that the aerosolized water was regarded a part of the dust because it creates basically a viscous flow that takes everything with it and flies away. Is that something that we're going to be talking about in this meeting? Because that was new to me as of, I think the thing came in September. Is that right?
I'll have to check. I don't remember SEPA making that reference to water aerosol. I thought that was coming from the appellant. However, I will check that.
We were very surprised.
Okay, I will check that, because if it is part of SEPA's representation, then I'll bring that up at the hearing. Okay.
That'd be great, because that means that the measuring that's been done should have been done, like, I don't know how you do it. I'm not that kind of expert, but I'm just wondering if the tape things that we were introduced to are appropriate for measuring that. So it was just something that I wanted to ask, because I don't want to, spring new exciting things on people at this kind of meeting.
Okay, so I'll include that in considerations, but when I'm setting up the questions, and it may be that it's something that we want to talk about, not only when we're talking about dust, but when we're also talking about conditions. So I'll take that on board. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Are you? That's me. That's me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mrs. Stenning, are you content with what I've set out so far?
Well, if you bear with me, Mum, because I've never been through something like this before, of course, I may be asking silly questions, but because I'm representing so many people, I need to know that I got the right things in front of me. So when we obviously, thank you. The big thing for us are the amenities, because that's what we live with. And under amenities, obviously, you've got the dust and the noise and vibration. But am I right in saying there are lots of other things that actually come into amenities that we will be able to speak about at the hearing? Or will they be restricted to those 3 points?
I'm planning to restrict it to those 3 points because I feel I have the information I need for everything else. But if you don't agree, now's the time to tell me.
Well, traffic being one that I think actually deserves a lot more work and speaking about, and there are a lot of complaints about that, and that does affect us. So that would be one thing I would like to bring in. If that was possible at all. There are. I have a list here that so that I didn't forget things. I'm assuming that things like buffer zones and light pollution you've already looked at, and you don't need that more information on that.
No, I don't.
Right, that's fine. And the other thing which you've spoken about, and which I was going to bring up, was the trust issue around conditions, but you've already spoken about that, and possibly now I understand it a bit more, and the enforcement side too, with the community have actually in the past come up against enforcement. So we do have, they are a little unsure and possibly a little untrusting with the enforcement department. So that's an area that we feel strongly about also.
Okay, well, we've agreed already that we will discuss that.
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else?
I think that was everything that I can think of. Thank you from the top of my head. Hopefully that's it all, Mum. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Before I return to those questions, there are a couple of questions from the floor. Mr. Barry?
Yes, thanks, ma'am. Just to reinforce the enforcement issue, whilst clearly you've stated that how the council enforce is not for the hearing, the fact that previously matters of conditions were adopted and accepted by both the applicants and the planning committee, and then clearly at this last application, it became clear that what had been accepted before was in no way able to be enforced. So I think it must be very, very clear to especially lay people listening in that if conditions aren't enforceable, they're not worth the paper or the conversation that takes place at this hearing or any other application.
Right, thank you. Yes, as I've already said, so I don't want to repeat this yet again. The circular requires conditions to meet 6 tests, and enforceability is one of those. So when we talk about conditions during the condition session, we will look at those tests, okay? And I'll set those out at the beginning of the session. I'll just make a note to myself. Excuse me. Again, so that we're all on the same page, particularly for the lay people, as you say, those who aren't familiar with the planning system. So I'll do that and we can discuss that. But again, whether or not the council is considered to have enforced conditions or not in the past is not something for me. That's something separate. Okay. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, Mr. McKeegan.
Totally, no problem. Thank you, ma'am. I would principally like to second Mr. Nelson's call for a discussion on point 2 regarding the city plan designation. That for me is top point here, because I think fundamentally we need to, before we go down routes of applying policy, the key thing in this application is whether this constitutes a new quarry or an extension of an existing quarry. And I think that's a fundamental driver as to how we then assess what the factors of residential amenity come into play, etc., etc. I think that would go a long way to helping that, because there is a lot of an amenity impact here. There is going to be prize agricultural land lost.
These are points that have already been made to me, Mr.
Okay.
McEachin.
Yeah.
I already have that information before me.
I suppose would it be clear, ma'am, if or everyone to the hearing knows whether it's going to be a new quarry or an existing quarry? I think that just that fundamental point. So I don't want to labour that respectfully. And
the point is already before me, and I don't have any questions
right.
on about it. So
That's
I'm
right.
not particularly concerned about pursuing that any further. Oh, let me finish. Over and above what Mr. Nelson said. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. I would just like to endorse the points made about transport and traffic impacts. I think, given the associated consents that have been given to the surrounding quarries, there's a different traffic proposal on the table to be considered here, and I think that is the second point there. And I would also like to have the asphalt plant conditions considered as part of this hearing as well. It is mentioned about 24-hour operations, which I don't believe is correct versus previous consents that have been granted in 2022, and also that the decision on this application is pivotal in my mind as to whether an asphalt plant goes ahead on that site or not, and I would like to hear more about how that's going to be clarified.
Okay, I can add that to that discussion of conditions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right. Any other points, Mr. McEachin?
Only final one, if I may, is just the consideration of the future vision of the area. We have a vision document that towards west that says it's going to be leisure, not heavy industry, and I would like to understand how that big picture comes together in light of this application. Thank you, ma'am.
Right, thank you. I think that will be one of the follow-on questions that come up with amenity and considering the implications for lost shore. So I'll add that in. Okay. Dr. Kavasnas?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if it's appropriate, thank you, ma'am, to per Paul's just recent point, if the appellant have available a current and typical CE marking of their aggregates, because it's very appropriate in terms of answering the resources that was put forward at your the 10-year need for aggregates. It's essential to actually be able to make a sensible point regarding this point. So if they have, including LA tests and grain size distribution and things, if they could make that available, because I haven't seen that in the paperwork. While we have so many pages, I haven't seen that. So if that could be made available, that'd be brilliant.
Why would you want that?
Because it's really important with regards to, amongst other things, there's been talk about work being done, like on the local, the West Town that's coming in, and on roads, and on the asphalting of the airport. And we know that those aggregate types are different. And so in order to assess, as I'm an expert actually on this stuff, if this is in fact right, it would be really good to know what kind of class this aggregate is, because that's not really clear to me.
Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Wilkins, do you have a view on that?
It's ultimately a matter for you if you want additional information on this. We will obviously comply with whatever you request, or attempt to address whatever you request. So if this is a matter you want addressed, or you feel you need further information, you've obviously got a considerable amount of information that we've set out in the documentation before you already in relation to the need issue. But if you require further information, then and ma'am, if you want to set that out in your note, we will obviously address that.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Yes, I do have some questions about the arguments put to me already about need, which I won't go into detail now. It may be that the questions Dr. Kavasnas has raised will be part of that. I don't know that I will need that further information, but I will consider it, Dr. Kavasnas, okay?
Yeah, that's fine, ma'am. I have reasons for this question, obviously. So if this is something you need me to elaborate on why I want to know this, that would be perfectly fine. But yeah, I do question the quality of the aggregates so that we can assess what the appropriate use of it would be.
Okay, yes, the issue of the quality of the aggregates came up in the representations. Okay, I'll have a think about it. Thank you. Right, I have a question from Martin. I don't have your surname for you. Can you let me know what your question is, please?
Thank you, Mom. It's Martin DL. Sorry, I just marked.
Thank you, Mr. DL. Right.
Joining the meeting. Thank you. It was just a question on residential amenity side, the noise, dust, and vibration obviously being very important. But one that I know I made a representation on, I'm pretty sure other people may as well, is on the LVIA and the points surrounding that. Now, it may well be that you consider that what you have in front of you is quite enough on that, but I do feel it's a very important point in the way that things have been presented, and I think could be misleading.
Could you remind me, did you raise these points in your representation, sir?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I will check that then. Let me just make a note of that. As I had so many representations, it's not always easy to remember everything that was said off the top of my head. Okay, raising reps. Yes, they were. I will check. Okay, I'll have a look and put that in my note. Thank you for your point. Okay, does anyone else have a point to make or a query before we move on to the next point on the agenda? Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Ma'am. I'd like to reiterate the points made, I guess, by one or two of the previous speakers, that my overriding issue here was with diminution of residential amenity resulting from the proposal. And I guess the thing, I've moved house, but I used to live about 1 kilometre from the gates of the existing quarry. And I think the concerns of the shall we say, wider community may be not in front of you at the moment. The local roads and the traffic network is just really not built for many of the vehicles which use that network even now. So with the
keep going.
So with the proposals that we have in front of us, I think it deserves really a wider discussion about transport and vehicle movements in the wider community, not just in the local communities surrounding Lateral and Bonnington.
The points that you've made just now are points that I've read in your representations and others. In terms of wider community aspects and the other quarries, I'm limited as to how far I can look at that. At the moment, I think I have the information that I need on transport, again, given how it can be regulated through the planning system rather than by the transport officials in the council. For example, at the committee meeting, it was made quite clear that the issue about lorries disregarding the no left turn, excuse me, onto Clifton Hall Road is a matter. It's not a matter that can be enforced through condition. It has to be done through a road order. So there are some points that can be looked at through the planning permission and others that cannot. And in terms of the wider issue, at the moment, I'm not convinced that that is for me. Mr. Skinner, do you have a view, or Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. I mean, I think we would have to take point away if it was something that you looked at or wanted to look at in more detail for the purpose of the hearing, but I know that it was covered for the purpose of the Development Management Subcommittee hearing and noted in the authority written statement. So we have made that position clear in terms of the council points and the committee points that were raised. But again, if it was something that had to be discussed in more detail at the hearing, we would certainly appreciate an opportunity to look at that and provide a bit more context if possible ahead of the hearing itself.
Thank you. Mr. Fisher, can I ask you, when you talk about the wider issues, are you also thinking about the implications for the roundabout at the industrial estate, that connects up with the M9 and the M8? Because that has come up quite a bit in representations.
To be honest, no, I wasn't. I think
Okay.
that's a bigger issue for the council, I guess. There are restrictions as to why that can't be expanded, etc. But no, I was thinking more in the other direction, to be honest, both into Wilkeston and further over to the relatively new settlement of Calderwood, which has a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit throughout. New housing, new schools, children, and whatever. And the road that lorries take now to get through there and onto the A70 further up is Clifton Road, which is 50 metres up Clifton Hall Road from the existing quarry. That road, where I used to live, is dangerous. It's subject to City of Edinburgh Council's Rural Roads Review, and where it's proposed that changes will be made because of concerns for safety of local residents and motorists and pedestrians and others in using that network of lanes. So I think it probably deserves a wider hearing, because from what I can see, the volumes of traffic using Clifton Road are only going to increase. They're only bound to increase with such a development as the materials recycling plant, which requires material to be recycled. So there's going to be more traffic, inevitably, and that brings more danger and issues of safety, in my view. And I think it deserves a wider consideration. Okay. Notwithstanding all the other elements of residential amenity, you seem to be clearly having enough information altogether already.
Right. Thank you for that clarification. That's very helpful. I will consider that before I send out the note. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Al.
Great. Any points from anyone else before we move on? Okay, thank you very much for your input. We can move on to the next point then, which is the grouping together of the interested parties. I think I said earlier that there are quite a few parties who are wanting to participate in the hearing. And if there are a lot of folk who want to join the discussion, it can make the hearing a bit unwieldy. And also it can also lead to a lot of repetition, which, as we only have 2 days, makes it quite challenging. So in the first instance, it would be helpful to know who's likely to want to participate in the discussions for the issues that I've already identified. So I'll go through them in turn. Okay. In terms of residential amenity, dust, noise, vibration, I'm assuming the appellant, the council, the community council, and Stop the Quarry will all want to be a part of that. Am I correct? Okay.
Yes, I think there may be, when it comes to the amenities, there may be more people than myself that may want to put their view on that, but certainly Stop the Quarry will be involved. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Kibasnis.
Yeah.
You had a technical point.
Yeah, I just have a technical point in terms of the order of the meeting, not this meeting, but the meeting then. I think it is unusual and refreshing that when you say something once, people have heard it and don't need to hear it again because you already heard that. In most settings, people aren't used to this. So this might be something to remind people in your introduction. That you actually listen. And that is, yeah, it's a little bit surprising. I think you can see people are used to repeating themselves and enforcing others because we're not used to being listened to at the first instance. And it's a luxury problem, but I think it's worth saying that this is a process. This is how you work. You hear it one time, checkbox. We don't get more checkboxes just because somebody said it many times.
Okay. I will reiterate then at the beginning of the hearing, I'm just writing this down, how it will work. Okay. Basically, just to remind everybody, this is not an inquiry. This is for me to clarify the information that I have before me and answer the questions, of which I have quite a few, as you're aware from the procedure notices. So it's where people have already made their points, and a lot of the points about amenity have been made already and made well by the residents, then I won't need to have those repeated because I already know them. I can reiterate that, summarize it, if that would be helpful. But again, I'm very aware of time, so it will have to be proportionate. Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted me to address at this point?
No, that was the main point, that, yeah, it's actually unusual. So
Thank you. Excuse me. I just have to take a drink. Hold on. Okay. So those are the main parties. Mr. Stewart, are you going to want to participate in that?
Right there. Yes, I think it would be useful if we were able to. Thanks.
Okay. I probably will have some questions for you. Thank you. Anyone else wanting to participate in that particular session?
I've indicated in the chat box, reiterating Gordon MacDonald MSP or his representative would like to speak at that time.
What would he like to speak to?
Basically, the issues that have been raised so far about amenity in the main.
Right. Can I just remind you, though, the participation in this session will be to answer the questions that I am asking and not to reiterate points that have already been made either in the representations or at the meeting of the Planning Applications Committee. Okay.
Yes,
So if somebody wants to stand up and reiterate all those points, I will stop them. I will not have time to have that kind of speaking going on from any of the participants. Okay? Just to be clear. Because those points have already been made. And as I said to Dr. Kavasnas, I'm aware of them and I'm taking them on board. So just so that you know, okay? Mr. DL.
Thank you, Mum. Obviously, once the questions are framed, it may well then be that there is a feeling of need to speak. How is that dealt with through the hearing? It's just saying just now, do we wish to say anything? And I absolutely appreciate what you're saying. There is no point in just saying what has already been said. But if what is being discussed or is being asked is not taken on board, or there has been a misunderstanding of what has been said, is that something there is time to accommodate?
Yes. The way that the session will work is I will start off with a brief summary, and then we'll go through the questions that I've already asked and get the answers from the various parties. And I will ask for some of that material in writing beforehand to give everybody a chance to look at it. And then there will be, inevitably, will be follow-on questions from me and possibly follow-on questions from the various parties, the council, the community council, Stop the Quarry, and other individuals who are at the hearing. Okay? So if there are points that you think have not been properly addressed, you can then raise a question through me as the chair of the meeting. Okay? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, perfect sense. Thank you.
Fine. If there are going to be quite a few of you who want to come to that and put questions forward that you know beforehand you will want to do, I would ask you to group together so that you have perhaps one representative who speaks and on behalf of the others, because otherwise it does become unwieldy. So I will ask for that to happen. Okay? Does that make sense, Mr. Deal?
Yes, it does, Mum. You are dealing with quite a wide and disparate community here. Stop the Quarry have clearly created an entity. Other people have spoken quite passionately about the effect of this, and I'm just concerned of how effective the pulling together of those parties might be.
Don't forget, I have more than 400 representations before me.
That's sort of that is my point, I think, Mum, that
okay,
you do have that, and as I say, the people have not banded together. There hasn't been a mass petition for this. There have been points made by individual parties who have not, and unlike Stop the Quarry, I'm just concerned, and I totally appreciate the point that you're making of it not becoming unwieldy. I'm just wanting to know that if there are points, people will have the capability to address those.
Well, yes, they will.
Thank you.
Welcome. Mr. McEachran.
I'll just get my hand up. I was essentially going to echo Mr. Dale's points there on having the opportunity to speak as well, and also to signal my intention to participate and speak at the hearing as well. So that's fine. Nothing further to add to what Mr. Dale's already covered.
Okay, and again, reminding you that I will have read all your material, so I'll be asking you to not repeat yourself too much. Okay, thank you.
My intention will
Very
be to
helpful.
focus on the matters at hand, ma'am.
Thank you. Very
Thank
much
you.
appreciated. Mrs. Thrush-Denning.
Yes, thank you. Because yes, I head up Stop the Quarry, and I am simply a layperson, then would it be appropriate? I will try to gather people together under Stop the Quarry, but I'm not, as Martin said, I am not going to be able to deal with 400 people. I don't have the capacity or the wherewithal to actually get to these people. So that does concern me a little bit. But on the other side, as a person speaking and hopefully making points at the hearing, would it be appropriate if there were people who have more technical knowledge who I would be able to refer to at the hearing if I can't answer the questions? Is that appropriate?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's fine for you to have that kind of assistance. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. So that's the residential amenity question. Everyone okay for me to move on? Right, I'm not seeing any hands up. Right, the need for aggregate over a 10-year period, part of that will just be querying some of the information and getting clarification, both from the information provided by the appellant, but also information provided in some of the representations. So I'm assuming again that the appellant, the council, the community council, Stop the Quarry will be part of that. Does anybody else wish to take part? Okay, well, details of the questions will assist you, I think. Mr. McEachran.
Apologies, ma'am. It was only just to clarify if you needed anything, if you wanted beyond the representation. I made some quite points in the representation, but if you're satisfied with that, I was just thinking whether you wanted me to reiterate that or not.
Can you remind me, was it you who provided that very detailed representation on need?
I think a table of numbers in my representation based on the factual tonnage, the supply and demand, and the represent of the area.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's one of the representations to which I'm referring. So, yes, I'll need you to be there for that, sir.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Okay. Right, and then the proposed restoration strategy. Again, given the points made, I'm expecting the appellant, the community council, the council, and Stop the Quarry to participate. Is anybody else particularly wanting to participate in that session? Maybe a matter of waiting to see what the questions are. I think, Mr. DL, this may be of interest to you given your concerns about the LVIA.
Yes, indeed. Sorry, my computer was about to die, so I left to get a cable there. On the point of the aggregate need, I just came in on call was saying. I know that was a point, again, that I've raised within my representation. Is that something that you would be expecting me to speak to that as well, or again, do you feel that you have the information with regard to that?
I think the answer to that question will come when I send out my questions.
Thank you.
So if I have a question that relates to you, then yes, I would need you to answer it, please.
Certainly. No, that's splendid. More than happy to do so. And the conditions, again, I think once there is more framed round about that, I think I'm clear as to whether there are more questions and indeed more points that need to be made, because I think for lay people looking at this, the discussion of conditions, and you made the point before that the discussion is without prejudice. It is, in the event of this being allowed, then these would be the conditions. But they therefore are very, very important. And I think it will be important to see the detail of that before prejudging what the discussion might be.
Yes, so some of that discussion will result from the previous discussions on residential amenity and so on. So that's one of the ones that we'll be less certain about at this stage.
Yes.
So we'll just have to, again, remembering that the purpose of that session is to give me the information that I need. Okay. So I will take that on board. Thank you. Dr. Kivasnas.
Yes, I was just wondering if on this point about restoration, if any of the other specialist hearing organizations should be heard in terms of the agricultural value of the land after the fact, the biomass versus biodiversity. There's an artificial biodiversity in quarries because it's very nutrient poor, and things like that. If you're planning on asking, I don't know if there's so many representation, I don't know exactly which one I would ask to have heard, but are you bringing in any of the experts, neutral experts, including historical Environment Scotland, actually?
Okay, so the other issues, cultural heritage, for example, and agricultural land quality, as far as I'm concerned, I have the information before me that I need, so I wasn't planning to ask any further questions on that point.
Okay, well, thank you for that information. I wasn't aware.
You're welcome. Okay. So from what I am hearing, then all the parties are going to want to engage in the session on conditions. Again, the appellant, Edinburgh Council, Community Council, Stop the Quarry, and others who are already at this meeting. I think we'll have to manage it on the day to make sure that we're not repeating ourselves endlessly, and also that we're sticking to the point of what I can and cannot deal with in this appeal. So without repeating myself, in the interest of consistency, I think we'll just assume that the main parties will participate and the others who have indicated their interests will also participate at the time. Does that seem a reasonable approach to people?
Sounds good.
Okay, if anybody disagrees, now's the time to say. I'm not seeing any hands. Okay. Okay. I'm going to move on to timetables. Then I'm aware of the time because we've now been discussing for an hour and a half, and people are going to start getting tired. So, given the availability of both me and the other main parties, we've already scheduled the hearing to be on Thursday, the 22nd of January and Friday, the 23rd of January. So we only have those 2 days, and that is why I said we need to be proportionate in our approach, because I need to get through all this material on those 2 days. Okay? Working backwards from those dates, we have today's meeting, the 25th of November. I will have the note of the meeting out by next Tuesday, the 2nd of December. There are going to be group representatives. I'll need them nominated by the 9th. Doesn't sound like that is going to be particularly helpful for folk. I will send out the detailed questions around the 16th of December so that you can have a chance to see what's being asked, which then leaves us 5.5 weeks before the actual hearing itself. So I'm going to ask for any summaries of answers to be provided by the 16th of January, the previous week. And also a list of any documents that you're going to refer to by the 16th of January as well. Okay, does everybody think that's a reasonable timetable? Or should I let me put it another way, does anybody disagree? Mr. Armstrong?
Ma'am, whilst I'm happy to work with that timetable, certainly in my experience, and I know this has become more common in hearings recently, reporters have provided an opportunity to have rebuttal replies when the answers come in from parties, so as you, ma'am, would have the opportunity to have that a written response from parties to any of the answers that a party wants to make a point about. That I've certainly found that very much focuses the points for the days of the hearing. And as we've got quite a lot to go through in 2 days, I think there'll be some advantage in that. I appreciate that the time scale for that is quite tight, but there could perhaps, on the dates that you've mentioned, if the summary answers, which are effectively the statements, come in on the 16th, if there were any sort of, and parties obviously don't need to do this, but if there's an opportunity for people to come back with rebuttal replies, say on the 20th, that would provide you with an additional opportunity to have a more focused discussion at the hearing on the 22nd and 23rd, because there may well be a level of agreement in relation to answers, or again, if there was an opportunity for a rebuttal, it may focus what the outstanding issue is between the parties. So other than that, I've got no other observations in relation to the timetable.
Okay. So I'm just looking at my calendar right now. Before I actually address that point, Dr. Kavasnis, you had a question or a point to make?
Yeah, on that point, I just want to flag that we're volunteers, we have day jobs, and other things going on in our lives. We are not lawyers who do this for work. So I would respectfully disagree that I think if we work up answers by the 16th, let's leave it and then I'm going to take 2 days of work and be at this hearing. And that gives much more respect for the inequality between the parties, in that we are being heard on an equal footing, not based on who can pay for expensive lawyers, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Thank you. Mr. McEachran.
Thank you, ma'am. I would also like to second what Dr. Kvasnis has just said respectfully to Mr. Armstrong, that I don't think the times of a premium here in terms of holidays, etc. But also I would like to draw attention to the purpose of a rebuttal. A rebuttal serves to weaken the opposing claim and support the original argument. And I think in the interest of balance, ma'am, I would think to ensure a fair due process that no time is granted to rebuttals in line with Dr. Kvasnis's wishes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to make a point before I come back on that? Okay. Mr. Armstrong, I understand what you're saying about rebuttal statements. To be honest, I don't think that gives folk enough time. It's only 4 days. And as both Dr. Kvasnis and Mr. McKechnie have pointed out, they're volunteers. I should say that I don't think we're going to be going into quite as much detail without me having given you the detail of the questions as people might think. So I think we can deal with the answer to the questions and any rebuttals at the hearing itself. And if necessary, we can go for closing statements to make final arguments. Would that be a suitable compromise position to the point that you've made, Mr. Armstrong?
Yes, ma'am, I'm happy with that. It was just a suggestion that I know rebuttals have worked in the past. I wasn't suggesting that if people don't want to put in rebuttals, they're not forced to put them in. But I'm happy to follow what you're suggesting and perhaps have a closing statement produced a week or so after the end of the hearings to address any further points.
Yes. I think it's one of those situations where we're just going to have to wait and see what is said at the hearing in answer to the questions that I'm going to ask. And if necessary, we'll go for closing statements and formal rebuttals. But also, if it's not necessary, then I'm not going to ask for those, okay? I'm going to ask for what I need rather than going into unnecessary detail and work for all the parties involved, which will just take up more time. So, Mrs. Versteening, you had a point to make?
I think you've probably just answered it, Mom. I was going to say, if we have a closing statement, do we get to do that in advance? I am not a professional lawyer, so to stand up and make a closing statement just off the top of my head might be something that I'm not too comfortable with. Is that, am I expected to do that? No.
Can I clarify?
Please do. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. A closing statement will be done in writing.
Oh, thank you. That clarifies it. That's much better. Thank you.
Not like the movies. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so if everyone's happy, I'm just going to move on to the last 2 points that we need to discuss. So the dates for the venue, dates for the hearing. I've already told you what those are. We're still working on the venue, but if we can, it will be in or near Ratho. We're just waiting for a couple of things to be confirmed before we know exactly where we're meeting. So I'll let you know, hopefully in the note of the meeting. In terms of the format, I think I've already said I'll lead the discussion. I'll ask the questions, get the answers from the parties because I'll be directing the questions to particular folk. And then I'll ask any further questions. And then I'll open the floor to questions and points of clarification from folks. But that discussion will be through me as the chair so that we can avoid having a free-for-all. Okay? In terms of the actual timetable, I'm envisaging us starting at 9:30 in the morning, aiming to finish by 5, with regular breaks through the day, at mid-morning, lunchtime, and in the afternoon. And of course, any comfort breaks that are needed, those will happen as well. In terms of the need for a site inspection, I've already done an accompanied site inspection of the quarry itself with the council, obviously the appellant. Dr. Kavasnis attended on behalf of the community council, and Mrs. Thrush-Denning attended on behalf of Stop the Quarry. We had to limit the numbers, as some of you already know, because of the health and safety issues around having too many folk walking around the quarry when it was operating. I've done an accompanied observation with the council of a blast from the quarry. I've also had an unaccompanied observation of a blast, a different one. And there's likely to be another blast that I will go to, hopefully in December, which the appellant will confirm to me in due course. So the only other point that I wanted to make is about the list of documents. To be honest, I think that the parties are probably going to rely on the documents that are already before me. But if you can put together a list of what you're going to rely on in answering the questions that I put to you, that would be very helpful. Those documents, if I don't have them already, will need to be lodged electronically, either in Word format or in PDF format. And I really would prefer a single document list rather than having different lists from everybody with repetition. So could I ask the appellant to coordinate that list, please? Mr. Wilkins, is that okay with you?
I confirm, yeah, we will organise that, ma'am.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, just checking my points. Right, that's all the points that I have. Does anybody else have any points that they want to raise before we close? Dr. Kavasnis.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, ma'am. I was just wondering on the last point, if we are sending, I have at least a couple of documents that I'm sending over. So I'm assuming that's for the 16th of January. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And then I'm assuming we're not sending that to Mr. Armstrong on the 16th, because then he will probably be very sad. So should we have an internal deadline for Mr. Armstrong to receive those documents or the document list, and when should that internal deadline be?
Can I ask you to liaise with Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Wilkins directly on that point?
That's fine. If Mr. Wilkins can provide me with the email for Mr. Armstrong, and people have my email as chair at Rathdown District Community Council, so I can funnel things up.
Thank you. Mr. Armstrong.
Ma'am, I think all the correspondence should go to Mr. Wilkins and the documents.
Okay. Mr. Wilkins, could you put your email address in the chat box, please?
Yes, no problem. I mean, is this really just to gather together a list of documents that will be considered as part of all of the hearing sessions over the 2 days? Is that the intention?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it's just to make sure that I have a complete list of everything and we don't have a lot of repetition, because I would imagine, for example, that everyone will be referring to NPF 4, to the most recent development plan, the various bits of supplementary guidance, and so on. And also when we're talking about dust, some of the documents that have been referred to in the environmental impact report. So it would be helpful if we just have a complete list and make sure that those documents are available so that everybody has access to them through the DPA website.
Okay,
Does
no
that,
problem.
does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Armstrong.
Ma'am, we've obviously already got the appellant's document list, which runs to, I think, at least 109 documents. and which obviously deals with, it has the EIA report, etc. It has the planning consultation responses. It has the planning policy and guidance, including MPF4, I think is document A38. That wasn't proposing to sort of recreate that. We've got that already. Is that what you were anticipating, just adding on to additional documents, say from any of the parties who want various additional documents being added onto that? As I say, I think we're on A109.
Yes.
I think we've got most of the core documents, the core sort of policy documents, for example, and the core documents in relation to the EIA report and the technical information on that. And that is obviously all already available on the DPA website. So it would just be the additional documents that people want to refer to over and above these documents.
In short, yes. If you could use that as the basis, if you can use the existing document list as the basis for that overall list for the hearing, that would be very helpful. And as I said, I'm not convinced that anyone will want to add anything significant to that list. But just in case they do, if you could coordinate that and use that, add to that list, then that would be very helpful. Okay. Yes? No?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, will everyone email me then with a list of any documents they want to refer to at the hearing by the 16th of January? And I'll compile that for the following week.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins' email address is in the chat box, but if you don't pick it up, come back to me and we'll send it on. I'll add it to the note of the meeting, Mr. Wilkins, if that's okay with you.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you. Right. Mr. McEachin.
Just one final point, ma'am. And just in terms of that document list itself, I take it, is that going to be a neutral document list? It's not going to say, we've already got an existing list of documents. That's not all going to be the appellant's support at the front and ours put to the back. Is that going to need to be subdivided?
Sorry, I'm not really understanding your question.
No, is it just a generic list of documents? It's not the documents that have been used for the appellant's appeal, if that makes sense. Is it a neutral list of documents?
It's a neutral list of the documents that are going to be used to and referred to by everyone, including me.
Right.
So if you put forward an argument referring to, I don't know, need for aggregate in Scotland, okay, then I need you to add that document to the list, give that to Mr. Wilkins, but then also make sure that it's submitted to our website.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, it's neutral, but it's also to make sure that I have all the information that you're referring to. Because if you start referring to a document in the middle of the hearing and I don't have that, it will be very unhelpful.
Yeah, so no, understand the process. So
okay,
that's fine.
Thank you.
Fine. Just so we're clear. Thank you.
Dr. Kavasnas.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what I just said previously. I don't know if it was picked up by Mr. Wilkins, that seeing as that list needs to be submitted with the rest of the paperwork on the 16th, you should probably have the documents by, like, say, the 15th, so it doesn't become a really awful day at work on the 16th.
Does the list need to go to the reporter on the 16th, or could that follow the following week?
It could follow on the Monday, but no later.
I'll keep the Monday clear.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It should be a relatively small task, Mr. Wilkins, I hope. Okay, but thank you for saying that you'll help with that. Okay, look, I have to say thank you to everybody. This has been a longer meeting than I anticipated, and thank you for your participation. Are there any questions before we wind up? No. Okay, well, I shall get on with writing the note and considering the questions that you've asked, and I look forward to seeing you all in January. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.